As they're getting hot and heavy, Holly thinks like, wow, he's kind of touching me all over. Like he's touching me a lot more than he should be able to. Did he just grow more arms?
Oh no. Oh no. Did he?
Hello.
Hey everyone.
Welcome to Say Smut, a literary podcast for readers and non-readers.
We are so thankful that you have come to join us today. That is Sarah, and she loves books.
And that's Hope, and she's thankful and loves talking to me about books.
I'm one, thankful, and two, love talking about books.
Yes. Each episode, I break down the plots of some pretty wild books to Hope, who has not read them. And we are at the end. We are at the end of our cozy holiday season.
Yes.
And I have quite the treat for you today. But before we jump into today's book, I want to give two quick announcements, which are that we will have a hiatus during the month of January because we need a rest. We're going to sleep.
I'm tired.
We're going to sleep a lot. So join us when we return on February 3rd. And follow us on Instagram and TikTok at saysmutpodcast. I all of a sudden like blanked out and was almost like at saysmutpodcast at gmail.com.
It's easy to say. Well, email us there too. We don't care.
You could email us. We would love to just chat, check in on us.
We'll reply.
But follow us on Instagram and TikTok at saysmutpodcast. And we will later this week have our yearly wrap up. So you get one little more mini episode from us as a duo. And then we will also have our friend Liz come on and talk about books that we read this year. So we'll have just like some wrap up episodes, some fun shit to tee us off.
Just some little fun here and there.
Yeah. So, Hope.
Yes.
We need to talk about Santa's Helper.
Okay.
Today, because we're going to cover Elfed by Ginger Kane.
Wonderful.
And before I do, I want to get into content warnings, which is just sexual. It's just a sexual book. And for those ratings, Storygraph is going to have a 3.16 and Goodreads is going to have a 3.26. And from our author, this is from their Amazon account. Ginger Kane isn't always writing lighthearted erotica about stupid, sexy monster men. I'm so sorry. I cannot.
Stupid men is a fair thing to say.
There's so many descriptors there.
Stupid, sexy men.
She's not always writing lighthearted erotica about stupid, sexy monster men and the lucky ladies they ravish. Sometimes she's daydreaming about stupid, sexy monster men and the lucky ladies they ravish. What? So sometimes she's writing about them and then sometimes she's daydreaming. Yeah.
Perfect. Life's about balance.
Because somewhere behind every romantically inclined monster-sized demon, fairy, shifter, orc, and alien is Ginger, inspired and drooling with a pen in hand.
Beautiful.
That was so many descriptors, though. Ginger, that was not good for my brain to read. But I appreciate the dedication.
And what is good is having the name Ginger Kane during the holiday season.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you ready to get elfed?
I've never been elfed, but I've also never been more ready. So let's go.
Well, let's take a roll back. And I'm going to ask you, have you ever gotten a bad or like embarrassing gift during the holiday season?
Nothing that immediately comes to mind, but I tend to revel in a goofy gift. So I think it would really take a lot. One of the funniest gifts I've ever gotten is for a white elephant one year. My brother had pulled my name and he found like the booklets they give prepubescent boys in elementary school about puberty.
Stop it.
I wish I could remember what it was called. So he like gave me the pamphlet and all of this stuff all wrapped up. And that was pretty funny and like a little bit embarrassing to read. I kind of wish this is so silly. Yeah.
But that is actually insane. And I have so many questions that we can ask off air. Okay. Well, our female main character, Holly, was at her holiday party with her friends when they played a white elephant gift exchange. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So she received a 12-inch unicorn horn-shaped dildo that was red and white striped with like this little elf doll hanging off of the dildo, like hugging it. Okay.
Funny, but deeply inappropriate for a workplace holiday party.
No, it's not workplace. It's just friends.
It's not just friends. Okay, then never mind. It's fine.
Just friends.
Like at work?
No, I thought so too when I first read it. Yeah, girl. Somebody get HR.
Who brought that? You need to report this.
What if it was HR that gave it to her? They were like, "You need to get fucked."
That's fucked. Hey, that's fucked up. That's what I would say. That's rife with problems.
Her friends know that she has been single for a while. She's kind of had a dry spell.
That's fine.
And so she kind of was like, okay, haha, everyone, who did this? And no one fessed up to it. But you should also know that the dildo came with a note that said, go elf yourself. And it's kind of funny, but also like everyone is like giving her advice, right? They're like telling her how she should get laid, how she should get a partner, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, to be honest, like, I don't even really want to be in a relationship. I really don't. Like, yeah, I would love to have some sex, but like the dating apps aren't doing it for me. And even her friends like imply that she should lower her standards.
Crazy. I don't appreciate your unsolicited advice, friends.
No, it's
friends of Holly.
Terrible.
Right off.
So when she gets home from this party, do you ever have that thing that's like the straw that breaks the camel's back? Like that one, like your belt loop gets caught on a door handle and you're like, I'm going to fucking kill someone.
Oh, yes.
So she walks into her home after going to this party and she throws her keys on the counter and they like skitter off the side of the counter and then fall underneath the fridge.
Been there.
And she's like, fuck my life. In fact, she says, oh, elf me. Okay.
What
a weird jolly saying.
That doesn't have the impact I would want if I was having the worst day. But
yeah. So how are you, if you're Holly, how are you going to unwind from this night?
Well, if I'm Holly, I'm gonna have I'm gonna have a glass of wine. I'm gonna maybe take a bubble bath. This is just me as Holly personally.
Yeah.
Because this book is called Elfed, I assume eventually I'm gonna elf myself with this new toy. But like, see where the evening takes me.
Yeah. Well, she decides she's going to turn her night around by drinking some eggnog. She's going to curl up wearing only a Christmas sweater, nothing else. And she's going to watch one of her favorite Christmas movies, which is one of like those stop motion old school movies.
Sure. Like Santa Claus is coming to town.
Yes. And those always kind of freaks me out. When I was younger, the older I get, I'm like, okay, those are kind of cute. Like, I mean, they're quaint, but like, yeah, there's something about.
I like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yeah, no, Rudolph is a great one. Yeah. Something you should know about Holly is that she loves one thing during the holidays, and it's those darn little elves. They are like so cute with their rosy cheeked motherfuckers that just like hang around her house. Like she just loves them. She thinks they're so adorable. Like, and so she's kind of like, yeah, the dildo like is fucking weird, but I do like the cute little new elf. Like I'll add it to my collection. So she's drinking the eggnog. She's curled up pretty much naked except for the sweater. And then she decides to go back into the kitchen and that elf that was on the dildo box is gone.
Frightening.
Along with the dildo.
Doubly frightening.
And she's thinking, what the fuck is happening? Like, am I drunk? Did I drink bad eggnog? Like, am I losing my mind? Is somebody in the apartment? Did somebody steal my elves and dildo? Like, what?
I gotta leave the house. That's haunted as fuck. I would think the house was haunted.
Well, just to set the scene, here's a direct quote. Fear was winning out over logic, and her eyes darted about the kitchen, looking for something, anything she could use to take out the army of dildo-stealing ninjas she was now absolutely certain were creeping just behind her, waiting to make their move.
I get it.
We've all been there where like everything starts sounding a little too loud.
You're like, I need a weapon.
I once heard on podcast somebody say, you should always get a pet because then if you hear any noise, you can blame it on the pet and you have so much more ease in life. Like, you know what I mean? Like you hear something in the other room and you're like, oh, that must be Luca. That must be Deku. You know, like, and so
that's why I got Ruthie so that she could make bark loud noises and I could know I was not alone.
She is your own like house haunted, like radar. Like
she's the ghost haunting my house.
Do you remember when you lived in your old apartment and she would like yell at that utility closet that
you
couldn't
even open? Locked one? Yeah. One time I really thought maybe we were going to die from a gas leak, but then I Googled and it said that dogs can't smell gases that would kill you that leaked out, or at least not the ones I was concerned about. So she was just crazy.
Let's be honest, Ruthie is not that kind and she's not that bright. We're being all that.
She's very kind. And unfortunately, she's very smart, but just in ways that are fucking annoying.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Okay, so she goes back into the living room and she like is starting to check the bottle of eggnog, thinking like maybe it is bad eggnog.
Did it turn to alcohol?
I don't know. But a voice says, quote, "Don't be so hard on yourself, darling. The holiday tends to make everyone a little crazy." Well, that's because the fucker is sitting right there.
The fucker? The dildo?
Well, not the dildo. Sorry, I all of a sudden lost the word for elf.
You got to clarify what the fucker is because there's a dildo involved.
Well, after like some hide and seek, the fucker is both items, I guess you could say. Sorry, I'm really struggling tonight for some reason. But on her couch, the elf is smirking at her. He's no longer like the little stuffed toy, but he's like real.
Cool.
And for some reason, she just like immediately knows it was the elf that she had earlier. Like which I appreciate. You know, no more misunderstandings. No. It saved us a lot of miscommunication time. She immediately is like, that's that elf that
he's probably wearing the same outfit, don't you suppose? Easy to tell.
Well, I'm about to tell you.
Oh, great.
Okay. So, quote, "She studied the hard line of his jaw, the coal black hair and the eyes, the pale powdery blue of his muscular body, and the elongated pointed ears that were almost twice as long as his head. Whatever he wasn't human. She didn't need a user guide to figure that out. And much to her surprise, that knowledge excited her." End quote.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So he's sitting there naked and immaculate.
Just nude. Well, his tiny elf outfit probably didn't fit when he became full size.
No, ma'am. And she's having like this wonderful sexual awakening because let's not forget she's had a dry spell. And it has come from a place of like not even being turned on. Like she's not even like titillized by anything. So like she's like, oh, I'm actually feeling heat in places I haven't in so long.
Wow.
And so here's a little bit more of a description of our mans for you.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, "But more shocking than all that, more telling that this creature was something of another world, another place, was the enormous red and white striped cock bobbing between his leg, spiraled like the dildo had been, but clearly part of him, clearly hot and alive and eager as it pulsed and throbbed."
Yeah, I felt like that was probably going to be the case. I felt like the dildo was going to be his penis.
Yeah, no, that was for sure happening. So I sent you a word because I'm an idiot and can't figure out how to say it.
Oh boy.
But can you say that word for me? Me not knowing words.
Licentious?
Is that what it is?
That's a guess. But I know that I think that's licentious.
We are not
I think
experts.
That's correct, because if you Google it, it'll say licentious.
Thank you. Well, she asks who he is, and he says, well, fae technically, but he's an erect, licentious fae, or elf for short.
Licentious means promiscuous or unprincipled.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for doing research on the spot, because now I'm going to turn things over to you and ask you, because we're going to go into this whole fae element of him.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't realize there was like a fae element to elves.
Great news. There's not.
Excellent.
Great
news. That's what I want to know.
Welcome to Hope's Report. Fae girl, fae? Sarah wants to know if there is a fae fairy lore behind Christmas elves. And honestly, not really, per se. Like, you can kind of group them together because they're in the same mythological group.
Yeah.
But, like, they're not. The Christmas elves, as we know them, are wholly unrelated to, like, fae.
The fae. Okay.
Yeah.
Fae. Got it.
I am going to, because it seems to make sense, talk about where Christmas elves came from. For the sake of our differentiating the two, though, fae is like mythical otherworldly beings. I'll talk about it a little bit more, but they're commonly affiliated with nature. And I would picture them as Lord of the Rings elves.
Yes.
It's pretty much what, when you think fae, they're like kind of like that. Too beautiful, human-y, maybe within the trees, kind of hanging out, being beautiful, whatever. Elves are more like small imp-style creatures, and sometimes they're helpful, and sometimes they're little assholes who fuck up your shit, like a common small elf. So we'll get into all of this. Elves have existed in lore for a long time, but legit Santa elves didn't really hit Christmas until like the 1800s. So I thought I would dive a little bit deeper to find out why, where they came from and why. First, elf is derived from the Alfar, I hope that's pronounced right, from ancient Norse mythology, which has existed long before the concept of Christmas elves. So Alfar were referred to as hidden folk, and are thought to exist kind of in an unseen realm between worlds, and that's kind of fae-y. They ask, but there aren't really a lot of like physical descriptions of what they look like, so you can't really connect them to small elves. They're not described as being classically short. They are like toy makers or something like that. They just kind of exist.
That's not their normal occupation.
No, they just kind of exist in MILF. I saw that sometimes elf and fairy were used interchangeably in medieval times, like as terms. Okay. But I imagine that maybe could contribute to the crossover, but that's sort of it. There is more crossover between like Christmas Santa elves and hobgoblins, or like in Germany they have kobold, which are these like little buddies, and sometimes they're nice and they're helpful, and sometimes they're little dickheads. Basically, they're like Sour Patch Kids in those commercials.
Yeah.
Basically, they're like Sour Patch Kids in those commercials. We start to get more towards the elves that we know and love after the Brothers Grimm publish The Elves and the Shoemaker in December of 1812, which is actually a fun fact for you. I think will be 212 years ago tomorrow. We're recording this on the 19th, and it was published on the 20th of December. Oh, anyway, but this is a collection of stories, and the most well-known one among this is about this poor shoemaker, and he's like, I could barely afford even leather to make a shoe, and
that's his voice. Right?
Yeah, it says he has a high set. He sounds like the shrimp from Shark Tale. That's what they said.
Heard.
Which didn't make sense, but it was my research. And he was like, I'm gonna make the best shoe I can with this piece of leather. And so he like cuts out a shoe, and then he gets tired and he goes to bed. Ruthie remembers, she read it with me. And then in the morning he wakes up and the shoes are finished and they're like beautifully stitched and amazing. And he's like, how did this happen? And then a person comes into the store and he's like, those are the most beautiful shoes. Not only am I gonna buy them, but I'm gonna pay even more than normal because they're so perfectly done. And then this comes in a cycle where he'll like start a shoe and then go to bed and he'll wake up and it's done. And eventually he sees nice little elves. Like he's been starting to become unpoor and can afford things, and he and his wife, if you will,
starting to become unpoor.
And he's like, hey wife, it's Christmas, do you want to see something cool and stay up late and try and see these elves?
You want to see something cool? It's my dick.
It's not. He wants to show her and like investigate who has been helping them make these shoes so they can not be poor anymore. And so they stay up and then they see nice little shoes being made by nice little elves who are completely naked. So
they're
completely naked. So eventually they make clothes for the elves. And then they don't see the elves ever again after that. But for as long as like the cobbler is making shoes, everything is done really well, and it just kind of keeps up. Cute little elves. Amazing. So
cute little elves.
I
love that.
Sort of nothing to do with Christmas other than that one part of it taking place in Christmas,
like kind of like how Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Yeah, it's like one of those deals. Well, it's it's more, maybe a little more explicit than that. But you got elves, they're little helpers, and Christmas. So great. 11 years after that was published in 1823, the story that would become known as "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" came out, and that one described Santa as an elf. So close. We're getting somewhere.
Santa as an elf?
Yeah, they described Santa as a jolly old elf.
Oh, I mean, I guess he could be. We there's a lot of history behind Santa.
We're just sort of mixing together the ideas of elves and Santa, kind of all up and around. I learned that the writer of Little Women wrote short stories called Christmas Elves, but you kind of can't prove whether or not she actually invented the concept of Christmas elves because the stories weren't published, and over time the manuscript was completely lost. But everybody knows about it, so Ruthie knows about it. Ruthie wants you to know that it is in Christmas Elves, even though we can't read that at all. That there are Christmas elves come into existence. And then finally, in a Harper's Weekly that was published in 1857, they had a poem called The Wonders of Santa Claus, which also talked about elves helping Santa make toys for Christmas. And then at that point, the concept of like Santa with elf helpers became so frequent in popular media that like Disney started making stuff and would put it in there, and like other people who were making media at the time would put it in there, and it just kind of stayed in the zeitgeist from there.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because we in Dutch culture have like kind of an elf adjacent storyline where like that there's just like a helper to Santa. Ours is obviously got like a very bad racist past and don't like that. But it's interesting to know like where did that integration of like the helper come from? And like how did we start molding it into the Santa story when Santa's already like such a commercialized story?
Right.
Anyway, that's so fascinating because like we're gonna go down this fae elf storyline because if anybody doesn't know, I read a lot of fantasy and I love a good fae fantasy where like, you know, like they have like the high fae, the low fae. And if you guys don't know what that is, high fae are like more human-like fae, whereas low fae are more like almost like gremlin-y type fae where maybe they are, they don't take the model of like, maybe they're smaller or they have like trees for skin, branches for skin. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like more like fantasy looking fae. And then like, so anyway, this story reminds me a lot more of like the high fae from like a fantasy book than like an elf from Santa Claus, you know? Okay. Sense. Thank you for your research.
You're welcome. And thank you to Mental Floss, Useless Etymology, and Wikipedia for all of my information.
Useless Etymology. That's a great name for what we got out of it.
I thought so.
So we're going to talk about Holly again, who apparently summoned this ELF. Let's not forget that it's an acronym. When she said elf me when she walked into the door. Okay.
Yeah, the secret code word for getting a fuckable elf to come to your house.
Absolutely. So meanwhile, while they're having this conversation, his penis begins to spin.
Oh boy.
Literally. And
oh boy.
I mean, it's just twirling. And some of this excess of his musk is kind of wafting off him.
Sure.
And it smells like vanilla.
Of course. Well, I'm not surprised. Are you?
No. I think at this point, are we surprised by anything?
I get a little upset when it's not bakery good scented and flavored anymore.
For the holiday season, of course. Yeah. You need to have it.
I mean, really for any holiday season where smell and food is like closely
something
associated
sweet.
with it.
Yeah.
If it's done well, hopefully.
Let's not forget, who was it? The Scarecrow who smelled from a couple episodes ago, who smelled like grave dirt.
Yeah, I remember that. And then like what was well, I guess it was probably sweet too, but what was the come in the grocery store one? In the groceries one? It was like a yogurt. Yeah, crazy. Hilarious.
So as she's taking kind of like inventory of his spinning penis, he starts licking her ear and she realized he's also got a ribbed tongue.
Convenient.
Which again, built for her pleasure. This is her this is our author's thing that we love to make a monster who's built for women. Anyway, so he's explains that he's got some fae magic that if she gives herself over to him, he will have full control of her, but she still can get him to leave. I don't know why this conversation kind of happens. I think they were trying to be like, consent's important, but also the fae, typically the ones that we know that I'm associating with this story, have a lot of to do with like trickery and mischief and like taking power over humans and like using humans as like playthings. So I think they were trying to integrate that concept of like he will pretty much own her, right, when they get into the throes of this, but she still has the power to get him to get off of her if she says elf off.
I'm glad it's as easy as elf off.
And then he just disappears.
Hilarious.
So it's kind of like Simon Says. And she's like, is that my safe word? And he's like, quote, can a human ever truly be safe amongst the fae?
I don't know, man.
No.
I guess not. Apparently
not.
So
she agrees to give herself over to him, and he elongates his nails into claws so he can take off her clothes.
Oh, convenient.
And then he gets her up against a wall and is kind of grinding on her. And as they're getting hot and heavy, Holly thinks like, wow, he's kind of touching me all over. Like he's touching me a lot more than he should be able to. Did he just grow more arms?
Oh, no. Oh, no. Did he?
Quote, Holly opened her eyes and saw that he had, in fact, grown more arms, 4 more to be exact. And to her shock, delight, all 6 of those powerful appendages were focused on her, touching her, teasing her, pleasing her.
I'm glad that she had a good time. That's what I'll say.
So it's like this little spider guy.
Yeah, that sucks for me personally, especially as someone who's not particularly fond of spiders, but I could see the benefit if you could look past it.
I can't wait to see your drawing. I know you're drawing. I was
drawing, and it was getting kind of weird because it's mostly just an elf man with like a pointy unicorn dick, which looks super inappropriate. But now I gotta try and find a place for a fuck ton of arms. Damn.
Just wait.
Go
so
ahead.
He goes down on her with that crazy tongue. And his eyes like start glowing like red and green.
Horrifying.
With like mischief, which I'm pretty sure they said that he had blue eyes.
Icy blue eyes, yeah.
I think. So I'm very confused about this color change. But he's also got some like really sharp teeth for no reason other than to bring like a layer of dangerousness to all of this, right? Because he's the fae and you should never trust them. And they're all like, you know, very dangerous, yada, yada. Okay, no one cares. So she
no one cares.
Orgasms from oral and falls asleep for a bit. And when she wakes up, she finds him, but not quite as he was, because now it's like there is a veil that has been lifted. Now, here's another element of like, let me just do my own like personal research on the fae to you guys, because
yes, please.
The fae, as I am talking about them, also is known to like put glamours on things, and like they're almost like too beautiful and ethereal to be in the human world.
That makes sense to me.
So they will put like a glamour on themselves to like downplay how they look.
Yeah, to ugly up a bit.
Yeah. And now this veil has been lifted and she can kind of see him in his true form, which includes like these gauzy strips of frost.
Oh, interesting.
That were warm to the touch and scented like peppermint and chocolate.
Sure.
So just all I can imagine is like, imagine like ribbons or like almost like tentacle, like ghosty things. Okay. And he also now has candy cane striped horns sprouting from his temples and curving up like a ram.
Oh, interesting. That's so interesting.
We're adding so many features. It's like we're playing a video game and you just kind of keep personalizing and building your character.
It's like you were playing a video game and instead of customizing a character by going through all the motions yourself, you hit randomize 500 times.
Oh yeah,
I just kind of went with it.
So he decides to fill her in on some more of his lore, which is that he's tied to the sex toy until he can be released at the start of Yule, and only under very particular circumstances. And so when she goes down on him, she's like, because again, I love when they do this, which is that they love to tell us some lore while the sex is happening.
Yeah. I love having a conversation mid-coitus to try and like explain your background a little bit.
No time like the present to get to know each other. So she's like going down on him and happy to find out that he does in fact taste like vanilla bean and holiday spice. And so let's again not forget that this is a swirling penis. That is apparently as thick around as a baseball bat.
What the fuck?
And let's not forget, it's like 12 inches.
It's like a unicorn horn, right?
Yes.
Okay. This is going to be really difficult.
And I'm not going to be able to describe a unicorn horn, so just go Google it.
I know what a unicorn horn looks like.
No, but like if you're listening and you guys don't know, just Google it. I'm not going to explain it here. We don't have the time because
man's basically packing a Subway foot long.
No, literally, this man is it hurts my lady parts thinking about a swirling 12-inch penis with the girth of a baseball bat.
Crazy.
No. So she wants him to finish, but then of course we've got more lore, okay? Because he drops the bomb that he can only finish one time that year. And he says, because, darling, much like Christmas, I only come once a year.
Hilarious.
So, of course, he's built for her pleasure. And he's like, I'm going to make sure you get as many out as you possibly can. And she's like, excellent. Thank you. So Holly confesses, though, that she doesn't know how she's going to settle for anything less than him for an entire year. And he's kind of like an arrogant asshole about it, where he's like, I've never been missed before. This is a new sensation. And then he's like, no worries. Let's keep having sex for now. And then when I'm gone, just use the dildo and think of me.
Okay, good enough, I guess. I guess that's the same.
So we're coming to the end. And for the great finale, I want to reiterate this again, massive fae elf with 6 arms, horns, magical tentacle things, and colorful spinning 12-inch penis enters Holly's vagina.
Yes.
Okay. And when they finish, again, him inside of her, because we really don't care about that. She can taste his sweetness in the back of her mouth.
Wow.
That's how potent he is.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. And he quickly promises to come back for her next year, not like he's going to go anywhere else again.
Just like Frosty the Snowman tells the children that he'll be back again someday.
Yeah. Except for like the rated X version of that.
Yeah.
And he just dissipates just as quickly as he came. And as she stretches out on her bed, she finds the dildo all clean and it's all cool. And then on her dresser is the little elf smirking at her right next to her set of keys. The end.
The end.
No epilogue. Which, you know what? Here's what I'm also going to say. She told us at the beginning she didn't want a partner.
True.
And she
just
didn't
wanted
get
a good
one.
time. She didn't need one.
Yeah. Good. Excellent. Don't give us a happily ever after of like a marriage and fated mates. You know what I mean?
She's an independent bitch, and he's gonna come next year, and hopefully so will she.
Yes. Oh, she will.
Here's what he looks like.
Oh my god.
So many times.
Oh my god.
I think I gave him too many arms, so I would like to.
No. Yeah. No. Yeah. No.
Like,
yeah. You gave him.
Did you say he's got tentacles?
He's got like those magical ribbon things.
Oh yeah. So take 2 of those arms, and the ones that look least like arms, just make those be ribbons.
Did you give him watch? Does he have a watch?
Yeah, that was to demonstrate that those were all arms.
Okay, well you need to change that if they're not all arms.
No, they are. So there are 2 arms in here that don't have watches, and I think I can turn those into tentacles. So I'm just gonna color them in, and it'll be fine.
That's excellent.
This is so important for the visual medium that is podcasting.
I love putting these on our Instagram, and I can't wait to put like a little like candy cane or something over his penis because I cannot put that on.
Baseball bat unicorn dick. Yeah, it's not really appropriate for Instagram.
Can you like make something around the penis that shows movement? Because again, it spins, so I feel like that's an important element.
Sure.
Yeah, even if it's just like some arrows, I don't really care. I just want to show that it's turning.
I drew 3 arrows around it.
Yeah, that's a necessary amount.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page.
Awesome. Great team bonding. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to hit our scorecard now with first diversity, in which I'm going to emphasize to you that there's no real depiction of any diversity. And I think like we've talked about this before, where sometimes this can be good because it allows you to imagine whatever you want to imagine. Right?
True. Hey, that's true.
Whatever you feel is best.
That's the stance I always take when it's not really diverse, but also not explicitly said one way or the other.
My favorite is when we describe the penis more than the people, you know?
Yes.
That's what I value.
The real main character.
That's the real main character. Plot.
Mm-hmm.
Do we feel like there was a plot? I mean, the lore. I always get behind the lore. I feel like that is part of the plot for us to get
there's
lore.
Like a beautiful bunch of backstory when you really take into consideration Holly's dry spell that her friends all know about that they got her this dildo for. And they're also trying to give her advice, but she's like, I don't even need this advice. It just would be nice to get laid, but I'm like not that worried about it.
Yeah.
That was pretty interesting. That was a lot to build up
I'm going to give it a 4.
Sure.
Because again, I like the fae element. I thought that was fun. It was different. Like when you hear like you're going to read elf smut, I really don't expect like anything out of the ordinary of what I traditionally think for an elf. So it was fun to be like, no, he can only come one time. And
just like Santa,
he can grow arms, and he's got these magical tentacle like magic things.
I was confused about all the arms. I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't know that about fae.
Well, I think like the idea of fae is like they can shapeshift sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and they're like more monstrous than like in reality. They're kind of more monsters than like the beautiful glamour they put on.
Sure.
Anyway, what do you put as the plot?
Yeah, I'll give that a 4. I thought there was a lot in there. For how many pages was this book? I don't think you said.
Like 50 or less.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's pretty good. Smut, I'm giving it a 5. I mean, like it could have been like kinkier, but as far as creativity with a penis, I don't think I could have asked for more. As soon as it said it spun,
that was crazy.
I was done. I was like, and then you give us extra arms.
So many.
I think we got everything we wanted from the penis description too.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. What are you going to give it?
Yeah. 5 for creativity. That got so weird so fast.
It's so weird.
I'll expound upon that when we get to say smut moment.
Okay. So cover, I have the link there for you. And I have to say, I love this cover. I think it's so fun.
There's something to be said for simplicity.
There is.
So this cover, black background, at the very, very top, some snowflakes. It says Ginger Kane in a fun font, and it says elved in green. And then there is, I don't think this looks like a unicorn horn. I'm gonna tell you, it just looks like a pretty, jizz covered dildo is kind of what it looks like.
It sure does.
It's red and white striped. It's got, I'm gonna call it frosting on top.
Sure does.
It sure does, and that's it. That's the whole thing. That's all you need. It's just got the dick.
I'm giving it a 5 because what? I don't know. I thought the design was fun. I thought it was fun
because it would have been a little less fun if it was just like a buff shirtless man with blue eyes. This is hilarious.
And you know for a fact that if they would have done some sort of like what am I thinking? Like the stock images.
Yes.
They would not have gotten somebody with his description.
No.
We wouldn't have gotten extra arms.
No.
We would not have gotten.
It would have just been a regular dude.
Yeah. Those horns wouldn't have been included. So yeah, I appreciate the extra simplicity for the sake of art.
I'll be honest. I feel like once we publish a censored version of my picture into the internet, Ginger Kane is probably going to want to change the cover of this book to look like my beautiful picture. And that's just something we need to brace for.
Ginger, if you're listening, I want you to know that I am Hope's agent. I'm happy to talk to you about rights to her artwork. And we are happy to work with you on your next cover. So,
no, straight up, if you publish this on books that go into stores that people could physically buy, I'll just let you do it for free. It's the funniest picture I've ever drawn.
Okay, so what are you going to give the cover? I'm giving it a 5.
Yeah, I said 5 for creativity. Why the hell not?
So we pretty much ended up with both the same score, which is a 93.3. That's a fresh score.
Pretty fresh.
What is your Sysma moment from this book?
The ability to, did you say, I just want to clarify, because I feel like this passed through my ears and it like tickled my brain, and then it had an aftertaste of like, I don't know if I really figured out what just happened. Did you say that he penetrated her like vaginally, but when he came, she could taste it in the back of her mouth?
Oh, yes, I did.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was correct. That was the craziest shit I've ever heard.
I'm surprised we skimmed over that as easily as we did. But at that point, I feel like we were desensitized by the amount of shit going on. But yes, I don't know if it was like a mental, like she just knew, or if it was like an actual, you know what I mean? Like if it's like when you smell cookies and you can kind of taste them.
You would have to go. I mean, look, my belief is suspended. I choose to believe that she could actually taste it in the back of her mouth.
Yes.
That would imply that somehow his magical Christmas elf semen shot all the way through her body backwards up to her mouth.
Yes.
Ooh, that's pretty crazy.
That is pretty wild.
That's what I'll say.
Again, I think it goes without saying the spinning penis and the extra arms. I do feel like we could have done more with the magical tentacle type things.
Yeah.
Okay.
True.
Because those were like low key kind of penetrating her at one point. Like they were like, I didn't explain this very well, but like he kind of uses those magic ropes to kind of like wrap her up and stuff.
Sure.
And I'm like, this feels like some crazy anime right now. Like I don't know.
My biggest takeaway was, weren't they like chocolatey peppermint scented?
Yes, they were cool. No. Hold on. I'm going to get the exact quote because that's not fair of me to just be saying shit. Okay, hold on. So they were gauzy strips of frost that were warm to the touch and scented like peppermint and chocolate.
Fascinating.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, I think, again, proud of her for sticking her ground, not getting in a relationship.
No.
Glad that she had a sexual awakening. Very fun. I think you should get new friends, Molly.
Yeah,
I think,
or at least if you could get your friends to join the podcast so we can tell them that you don't need to be in a relationship unless you want to be in one, that would be, I guess, my recommendation.
Set your boundaries.
Set your boundaries.
Now that is our book. Thank you so much for joining us. You can find us, if you so choose, on TikTok and Instagram at saysmutpodcast. And while we're away, the cats will play, and we are going to give away some fun books that I loved from this year. If you're still listening, I'll even tell you that I've got Savor It by Tara DeWitt and Lost and Lassoed by our bestie Lila Sage. And I think I have Flawless by Elsie Silver on the rosters to give away. So go follow us on Say Smut Podcast. And then we'd love to hear book recommendations. I'm doing the lineup for February. So
yeah, a whole new year approaches, you guys.
You guys. So send those our way via email at saysmutpodcast@gmail.com. Pop us a rating or review on the podcast platform of your choosing. We can't wait to see your guys' spinning penises this holiday season.
That's the craziest
I know
you've ever said.
I like went down that realm thinking it was going to sound different, and then it didn't sound different.
That's the craziest thing you've ever said.
No, I'm taking it back because I was thinking of your artwork, and then I was like, no, you know what? Take your 6 arms and embrace your loved ones this holiday season.
Yeah, give them a hug from us with all 6 of your arms.
And stay smutty. Goodbye.
Goodbye.